Hello everyone and welcome back to a car profile where, if you haven't already guessed, in the background we're looking at the BMW M3 GT. Now if you do like this video, do make sure you like it. Do subscribe to the channel, stay in touch with all the latest content, including these car profiles that I'm showing you. This BMW has a naturally aspirated 4-litre V8 engine. However, this is the current performance stats on the given circuit. So as it's an older car, it's the same bop across the board. I am hoping they do change the old car bops at some point, but you see that 495 brake horsepower, 1,319 kilograms. Now, in terms of this car, front engine, rear wheel drive, 6 gears as well. It's actually not a GT3 car. It's a GT2 car in real life. It has a lot of carbon fiber, so it doesn't weigh a lot, actually. It's actually the fastest M3 to ever be produced. In terms of this car, it has won the Nürburgring 24 hours before now, which is kind of nice, to be honest. Another car that has won the Nürburgring that is in the game. And the reason why it's got a massive wang, which I talked about in Beat the Meta, is because of it being a GT2 car. Right, without further ado then, let's jump into the car profile and let's see how it does. Now, I did talk about old cars not having a custom bop. It's the same situation here at the moment as we go to Laguna Seca for this low-speed bop test. Now, in terms of this car then, in the slower sections, it does feel a bit clunky. However, you can rotate it with that engine, you know, just accelerating, just get a little bit of rotation and continue on out. Now, as we get towards the end of Sector 1 there, only a 10th down on the Audi R8 LMS Evo. That's not too bad at all, really. Now, this car is actually quite stable in certain scenarios. So if you upshift quite early, the car remains very, very stable. It's not turbocharged. You don't get that turbo spool. It's very, very predictable. The problem you do have is when you have low grip. And we'll talk about that in a second. So we get towards this kink. It wasn't too bad in the kink, you know. It was a bit slower than a lot of the more modern cars, but you expect that because it's got a little bit less downforce than the modern cars as well as we get towards the corkscrew. Again, with it being very predictable, I could understand exactly what it was going to do very quickly as we go down the corkscrew then. 36.1 for Sector 2. It's dropped to two more attempts there on the Audi R8 LMS Evo. And it really is mid-speed corners where this car does struggle a teeny tiny bit, to be honest with you, because it doesn't have that front-end downforce. We get to the final corner here as we go through here. And we're going to talk about the exit then. Low grip is where this car struggles the most, okay? It really does struggle in low grip scenarios. And Beat the Meta, it was on racing hard tyres. It really did struggle there. We are 6 tenths down on the Audi R8 LMS Evo. We'll see where that puts in the end on the leaderboard, which is looking at optimum times, not fastest laps. And that is what we're going to be looking at here. So it's not in the top 10 there. It didn't get as low as a 121.3 that you can see down below. Obviously, the BMW M6s we've done previously. They're P3 and P4 right now. The Audi R8 is its current time as well. So they've jumped them in optimums. Not necessarily fastest laps. It doesn't make it into the top 20 then either. So it's not gone below 121.5. And if I'm honest with you, it was those medium speed corners. You see that it comes home in P28, surrounded by a lot of other cars, to be honest with you. It's done better than expected, actually. Being so close to the Suzuki, in my opinion, it has done better than expected. It actually beat the Z4 GT3 car, which hasn't been changed there as well. So it's not too bad of a showing. I would like it to be a bit further up, to be honest, so it becomes usable. And I will explain that most people actually on the Beat the Meta video were commenting, not most people actually, a few people were saying they didn't even know this car existed in Group 3, and that's because nobody uses it. We go to the medium speed bop test then as we go into turn 1. I did struggle here. It really struggles with trail braking and when you start braking. There's just so much weight that goes over that front end, or this is what it feels like at least. It just starts to understeer very quickly as you brake. Now, abusing gears actually helps in this car, and I figured this out in Beat the Meta. So dropping to second, then back to third. I'm assuming the diff just helps it rotate a little bit, and that actually helps in the S's. How much does it help? That is the question. We are racing the BMW M6 GT3 Sprint model now from the previous car profile, but we are half a second down on that car. That car was sublime in terms of the S's. This car, not so much. Get towards Tidgney 1 then, no issues at all there in terms of the bump at Tidgney 1. And Tidgney 2 felt like the M6 GT3, if I'm honest with you. Really stable on exit. I could really abuse gears where I needed to. We crossed the line there and we've dropped a little bit more time. 8 tenths down now on that M6 GT3 car as we go into the hairpin. Exit the hairpin, no issues with turbo spool, so very, very predictable in terms of the exit. And that's something to say about this car. It is a predictable car. You can understand it very quickly. Unless you get to low grip scenarios, then it's just all over the place. It really is. So when it's got high grip, so racing medium, racing soft tires, potentially this car can come forward and move up that grid just that little bit, and you may start seeing them a little bit more. Going through Spoon then, I was struggling again with a little bit of understeer, just trying to carry that little bit more speed it was struggling. We were 8 temps down before on the M6 GT3. Let's see what it is now. Remember, that M6 actually struggled a little bit at the hairpin in terms of this, and we've not lost any time really there at all. The good sector 3 times, to be honest with you, 43.9. It's very much there with everything else. 130R was dropping a little bit of speed there, about 4 or 5 miles an hour compared to the very best. And the Casio triangle here, this is where it did struggle a little bit. I'm trying to get on the power very quickly. A little bit of a wiggle there with power oversteer. Second gear does suffer with that a little bit, but it's predictable. You can understand it. So going to third gear is not necessarily out of the question. We are 1 second down, though. A 2-minute lap there. Didn't make the 59s, but did it make it into the 59s in terms of Optimums? And that is the question. So it's definitely not at the peak, at the summit there of the leaderboard with the Porsche 911 and the BMW M6s. They're very much at the forefront there in the 58s in terms of those Optimum times. We go to the top 20 then. Still nothing there. Now, this is very much a very close. I believe, if I'm honest with you, the medium speed bop is done at Suzuka. That is my guess. I love this circuit as well. But the cars are so close. And you've seen that here. That, yeah, it's not even in the top 30. But we're only half a second here of P30 to that top 3 there, which is very interesting indeed. Actually, P36 is near the bottom. It really did struggle here, if I'm honest with you. I struggled with this car. I think the S's, it was a big struggle. And I just feel like some of the medium speed corners, Spoon as well, just struggled. Turn 1 was a big struggle, actually, in this car. So it's like trail braking. It just struggles a little bit to get that rotation. We go to a high-speed pop test then. This is at Bathurst, of course, as we go in towards turn number 1. Again, using those gears to my advantage if I can. And a huge amount of oversteer on exit there. And that's because of the second gear. I did mention this just before. Second gear does suffer with some power oversteer. We are racing the endurance model this time. If you watch the previous car profile, you will understand why. But we are racing the endurance model now. It's a BMW Fest at the moment here. And we are actually up here on the BMW M6 GT3 endurance model, which is interesting. Going through this corner then, it did struggle a little bit, but it managed to carry the speed okay. It wasn't the greatest. Now, it wasn't actually that bad coming into here either. As long as I went to first gear and then short shift to second, it was fine. If I stayed in first, struggled. That short shift really does help this car out massively. And coming up the mountain, actually, I didn't actually need to lift that much. I did on this particular lap, but there were some laps where I could nearly do that flat, which is really interesting to see. Again, going through this left-hander, very stable. Could try it flat. Going over here then, I just suffered with a tiny bit of understeer, so I wasn't carrying as much speed, but even so, I could try and maintain that speed. Down the mountain, with 4 temps down on the M6, this is where this car really benefits a lot from that predictability. Because I could just absolutely destroy them going down the hill. I mean, you just saw it there. Straight on the throttle. I understood what the car was going to do straight away. Same in Forest Elbow here. Straight to second gear. Trying to put my foot down straight away. I knew exactly what the car was going to do as we continue on. Now, if you're wondering about laps, we do 1 out lap, 10 fast laps. That's the whole point here. Times 1 fuel and Tyre Wear. Because I believe that's what the BOP is done on in terms of race pace, not necessarily quality pace without the fuel. We get to the line then, 6 temps down on the BMW M6 here as we head towards the chase then. 31.4 sector 3 is actually a pretty good sector 3 if I'm honest with you. Getting towards this left-hander, it did struggle a little bit with wanting to turn in. However, you could have used the gears occasionally. That's what I did try as we head towards the final corner there. Looking for that big tree on the right side. Here we go, hard on the brakes. Once again, coming into this corner, I did struggle a little bit straight to second gear there. A little bit of a wiggle on exit then. We head towards the line. What kind of lap time is this going to be then? Is it a 2-minute 1? No, it's not. It's a 2-minute 2.3. That's not too shabby, to be honest with you. 7.5 temps down on that BMW M6 as we pull over, and that's when I actually check the fuel. So I do check the fuel here, folks, on every single test I do. Now, that seemed fairly okay, to be honest with you, in terms of the test that we did there. Definitely going down the mountain. It was very good down the mountain. I actually think that beat the meta would have been possible here at Bathurst if it came up. In fact, there you go. P19 then. 2-minute 2.109 there. Nearly into the 201s. This car is not too bad at Bathurst at all. Yes, it's not a meta car, but it's very much better than quite a few other cars there. You know, the Subaru WRX. I know that's changed, but that's a significant sort of opponent to beat there. Beat the Z4 that you can see there. It was just so good down the mountain. I've got to be honest. I felt so confident driving down the mountain in this car. It was just nice. It really was nice. Yes, it has a few moments, but it's not too bad at Bathurst at all. So fair play to the BMW M3 GT car. Right, and now we'll explain actually the high-speed test. High-speed BOP is at Nürburgring as well, so maybe they've done it based on the high-speed. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to the fuel test then. So top left, automatic fuel map 1. Bottom left, fuel map 3. So if you're an automatic driver, just focus on the left-hand side. However, if you use gears, half shift top right and half shift plus fuel map 3. So we can measure our best performance in the top left versus all the other 3 squares. It gives us an idea of how fast it gets to the 2,000 meter line, which is where we measure the performance, and how much fuel it saves. You're looking at both of these to really give you an accurate picture, and I always say this. So top left gets there first, so you do rev this car. I didn't know that from Beat the Meta, doing so many races with Beat the Meta. That was the case. You can watch that at the end of this video, of course. Top right finishes next in terms of the half shift there. 64% fuels, which saves 8% with that half shift towards the line there. Looks like next is going to be bottom left there. 63%, so it shows you here this isn't a car for an automatic driver. Half shifting is the better way to go with this. You use too much fuel actually using all the revs. And bottom right there, 71% fuel in terms of where it gets to the line. That is a 15% saving. So that's a bit higher than normal, I think, from memory. But let's actually have a look at all these tables then. Let's give you an overall picture of how this car settles in there. So it's not there in terms of performance, you know. So these cars are obviously the best in performance. We're looking at the fuel there as well. As you see, Ford GTLM race car spec 2 at the top. That's obviously got the lowest fuel, but also the best performance, and sort of what you expect as we go to the top 20 then. So it's not made it into the top 20 either, which is interesting indeed, because I felt in Beat the Meta, it's actually had better acceleration than that Audi R8 LMS Evo, but it doesn't appear to be the case. Maybe it's the top end where it suffers here, as it's not even in the top 30 then. Oh, it's P31 there, so it's very close to the Audi then. That makes perfect sense. Maybe being in slipstream, it actually helps. But 56% fuel there. So it's using about the same as a lot of other cars around it in terms of fuel at maximum performance. Half shift then. So we're P31 at the moment. Now it's the interesting part to see how much fuel it's used and where it sits in the leaderboard at this moment with a half shift. Now, it did look pretty good in terms of the half shift, what we've just done in terms of the test. Did save quite a bit of fuel. As you see there's quite a few cars in the 60s there, so we're expecting it to be in the 60s then, if it's any good there. 64! In fact, it's around about where everything else is there, down in that bottom end. So P29 did move up a tiny bit, but you can see there, it's with everything else. So average. Bang average, I would say there, in terms of fuel saving. So it's not the greatest thing in the world to save fuel, to be honest with you. Right, we are going to go to... Okay, remember what the next test is. I think that's going to be automatic and fuel map 3. Yeah, that makes sense. Not in the top 10, which is to be expected. It was P31 in the maximum rev test. So the question is, does that engine map, when you reduce the engine power, does it bring it up or does it drop down? I expect it to drop down, to be honest. It's naturally aspirated. Usually turbo cars are the ones that don't suffer as much here because they have a turbo to help them. But let's see what happens then as we get to the top 30. So it's not in the top 30, so it's definitely not gone up in terms of that leaderboard. But where does it sit then? P33, it's gone down then. Makes sense. Naturally aspirated. It's gone down a little bit there in terms of the power. 63%. Yeah, it's not a fuel saver there in terms of automatic. Not a car I would pick if I was an automatic driver, if I'm honest with you. We go to the final one. This is emergency fuel saving. So if you absolutely have to save fuel, this is the test that you need to look at then. You can see there the cars are around, what I'd say high 60s is a good place there. So if you're high 60s and towards the front, you are a good fuel saving car, to be honest with you. We've got some 70s there, BMW Z4 GT3 car, which arguably this is what it should be competing against. 71, 26.2, so P29. Yeah, I'm going to say it's not the greatest in the world there. It's a bang average, I would say, in terms of fuel saving. So not the car to go to for fuel saving and performance. So that is the end of the fuel saving segment and fuel performance and performance overall. We're going to go to next the tyre test. So what we're going to do here in terms of the tyre test is we're going to go to Sardinia Layout C in reverse. And we're just going to keep lapping the car until it runs out of its first tyre, whichever tyre that may be. So we're going to go into turn 1 here, slow the car down, go around and accelerate out. And what we are going to do is just advance to the final lap, whatever lap that might be. And it's actually lap number 6, which surprised me when doing this test. I mean, I got to lap 4, I was like, got loads of tyres left. Lap number 6, here we go. As we go up the hill then. Oh, it's just ended right there then. So what we do is we add all 5 laps there on the right side, as well as the 21.154. It gives us a total time with how long this tyre lasted. The laps were a bit slower. It did finish around about where the M6 finished, to be fair. So it's going to be in a very similar position, I suspect. And here we go then. So P10 in the end. P10, not too shabby at all on tyres, this BMW M3. And I suppose it's because the front end doesn't have as much downforce, so the tyres aren't being eaten as much, is my only guess as to why it's so far up the leaderboard. But you've seen it right here. It's pretty good on tyres. It's not really good anywhere else, to be honest with you. So the only way I can see this car really working is if it's a Bathurst race where tyre wear becomes significant. This car maybe then pushes it up. And I did say about Beat the Meta, potentially the best place to use this car in terms of maybe being a little bit competitive is Bathurst, where tyres do become a factor. But then, of course, you've got the newer BMW, which will come to the forefront. But if you wanted to use some alternative, there you go. BMW M3 GT. Where does it fit on top speed then? So this is taken at Bathurst for those wondering. So that's a high speed bop, of course. This would change on lower speed bops, but you're not measuring on a high speed. On a low speed track, you're not measuring higher speed. So a bit irrelevant. But where does it sit here in terms of the top speed? Let's have a look. It's not in the top 20, not even in the top 30 then. So it does mean it's not a 169 mile an hour. Remember, this is ordered alphabetically when you're at that speed, which does mean it is dropping to the bottom end of the leaderboard. 168 miles an hour then. Yeah, that's not good in terms of top speed at all, which is surprising. So it did quite well at Bathurst to say it didn't have the speed there. Did certainly have the performance down the mountain, that is for sure. In summary then, where does it fit? So I have always said that the top of this leaderboard really is the metas, the sort of where you want to be. Top 10 now is where that factors in. Then you get to the non-meta cars. So the Renault is leading that pack at the moment, but that's an old test. We do need to do an updated variant. So you'd look at this table for manufacturer choice. Where does your car sit? BMW M3 GT, P30 there. It's literally sat with a Hyundai Genesis Group 3 car. That has been buffed though, so I expect that to go up the leaderboard. Quite a few of these cars have been buffed, but yeah, it's not the greatest car in the world to use this, if I'm honest with you. I'd only use this as a bit of a last choice, or if I wanted to enjoy something different. It does look the part though. I really do like the look of this car. It does look fantastic, but it's not fitting in the Group 3 class, is it really? It's good on tyres. Bang average on fuel. It's pretty rubbish at mid-speed tracks. It's a bit iffy at low-speed tracks. High-speed tracks. You know, Bathurst was okay. I suspect at Spa it would be okay as well. But it is what it is. That's going to be it for this video, folks. If you did like it, do go like, do subscribe to the channel. If your car hasn't been tested, let me know in the comments. I'll add up the votes. Now, next week, we're going to have an update on 3 cars. 3 cars are getting updated, so do keep an eye out for that. And I believe one of them may be the Audi. That's it for me, though, folks. GT and me get Fanatech links there for you to check out, and the code. 2 videos there to check out as well, including the Beat the Meta. That's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video live stream again very soon.